All right. Ready to dive into the world of global currencies. It's always kind of blown my mind how these symbols, these codes, really can have such a huge impact on, well, everything. It's like they're the VIPs of the financial world, you know? Some currencies, they just command attention. Like the heavy hitters, right? We're talking US dollar, the euro, the Japanese yen.
The pound.
The British pound, exactly. And
Swiss francs?
don't forget the Swiss franc. It's like the starting lineup for like a global economic all-star team. But speaking of these currencies, I gotta ask, what's with all the nicknames? It's like a secret code. Like the first time I saw cable in an article, I thought they meant like actual cables, like, you know, sending money through wires across the ocean.
Right.
It's for the British pound though, right?
It is, yeah. It's a throwback, actually.
Yeah.
Back in the day, exchange rates were sent over those giant transatlantic telegraph cables.
Wow, I did not know that. And then you got the loonie for the Canadian dollar. At least they put a picture of the bird on the actual coin, right?
Yeah.
But the Kiwi for the New Zealand dollar, come on.
Well, it's a national symbol.
I guess. It's just funny to think about. But, I mean, are these nicknames just for fun? Like, do traders actually use them?
Oh, absolutely. Traders, analysts, they use them all the time. It's shorthand. When you're dealing with this much information, you got to be quick, you know? It's like, why use 5 syllables when one will do?
That makes sense. So it's not just like colorful jargon then. It's actually practical.
Exactly. But it's a good reminder that even in this world of numbers, it's still people, you know? And people like their shortcuts and their slang.
True. But speaking of big players, let's talk about the currency that seems to be at the top of everyone's list, the US dollar. Okay, so we've met the G10, the heavy hitters in the currency game. But let's be real, there's one that's like the reigning champ. Why is the US dollar the king of the hill in global finance?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's not just about being American.
Right. It's way more interesting than that. Think of it this way. The global economy is like a giant market, right?
Okay, I'm with you.
And every country is there, trading.
Yeah.
But they need a way to pay each other, something everyone accepts.
Big sense.
The US dollar, it's like the gold standard, even though it's not actually gold anymore.
Right. Gold standard, but not gold. I like that.
Over 60%, think of this, over 60% of all the money that central banks hold on to, the reserves, it's in US dollars.
Wow, that's wild. Like they're all betting on the dollar.
Its stability. The sheer size of the U.S. economy alone, it's a quarter of all global activity.
So even if I like never buy anything directly from America,
it still affects you.
It still matters.
Right.
And the U.S., you know, relatively speaking, it's politically stable. No revolutions lately.
True. That's got to count for something.
Investors, they like that. Safe haven, they call it.
It makes sense. But the U.S. military, that's a factor too.
It's all connected. That stability, that global presence, it reassures investors. Their money's safer, backed by that kind of power.
Like a bodyguard for your money almost?
Yep.
Exactly. But you want to see it in action. How about a trade not even involving the U.S. directly?
Okay, now we're talking. Give me an example.
Say Mexico needs oil, right? They're buying it from Saudi Arabia.
So pesos for reals?
Nope. Dollars. Mexico exchanges pesos for dollars, then uses those to buy the oil.
So even when it's not the star of the show...
The dollar's the stage manager.
I like that. But it gets even more complex, right? What were those cross-currencies? Cross-currencies. Sounds kind of mysterious, doesn't it? Like a secret society of currencies or something?
Right. It's a side of the market most people don't even think about.
So break it down for us. What are we talking about here?
Think about it like this. We've been talking about, say, the euro against the dollar, right? Or the yen and the dollar.
Right, that's the usual way to think about it.
Cross currencies, it's when you're trading two currencies that aren't the U.S. dollar.
So like a direct line, no middleman.
Exactly. Imagine a British company buying, car parts from Japan.
Oh, okay, I can picture it.
They're dealing with pounds and yen. No need to involve the dollar at all.
But how do they, figure out the exchange rate then? That's got to be complicated, right?
You'd think so, but it often comes down to simple multiplication.
No way, really.
Let's say a pound is worth 1.3 dollars, just as an example. And a dollar buys you 110 yen.
Okay, following.
Multiply those, 1.3 by 110, and boom, you've got your pound to yen exchange rate.
So even when it's hidden, the dollar's still kind of running the show behind the scenes.
In a way, yeah. But here's what's really cool about cross currencies. They're not just about math. They tell you about the real world.
How so?
If suddenly everyone in Britain wants those Japanese cars we talked about, the yen's going to get stronger against the pound. Supply and demand, all that.
Makes sense. Each currency is like part of this big web pulling on all the others.
Exactly. It shows how interconnected things really are.
Speaking of connections, we've got to talk about the currencies that don't get as much attention,
Sure.
the underdogs.
Yeah.
What about those exotic currencies you mentioned earlier?
Ah, yes. Those are the ones off the beaten path. Think the Hong Kong dollar, the Thai baht, the Mexican peso.
A whole other world of currencies out there.
Each one tells a story about that country's economy, their place in the world.
This whole deep dive has been fascinating. We've gone from the big leagues with the G10, seen how the dollar plays its part, even gotten a bit, well, exotic with it all.
It's easy to forget how important currencies are.
Totally.
Yeah.
Just those bills in our wallet, but they're connected to all this global action.
It's a reminder that the world's a lot more interconnected than we often realize.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This is the kind of stuff that makes you see things differently.
It sure does.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into global currencies. Thanks for joining us.